values. And then for the second hour or the second hour and or so, I'm going to ask that everybody shares, each person shares one sentence from Prabhupada and share your understanding, your reflection on that sentence. And as we go through that process, we'll offer some reflective listening on each person's sharing. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Can I get sharing permission? You can give me sharing permission.
I will give you permission to share.
Okay.
You should have permission now.
Thank you. Is everybody seeing my screen? Yeah. Okay, the way that I wanted to share it was in kind of themes that come out through the chapter. And the themes that I've kind of picked up on are Lord Chaitanya's mission that comes up in this chapter, the conversations around Shankaracharya and the 6 philosophical processes. What else are we going to cover? We're going to cover Srimad Bhagavatam, because Srimad Bhagavatam is definitely a theme that comes up in this chapter. And the other one is studying Srila Prabhupada's books, because there was something in the chapter that definitely brings out this concept of studying Srila Prabhupada's books. And we'll finish there. So, setting the scene of this chapter, the background of the chapter. I was quite fascinated by the idea that it's a continuation of the pastime of Krsnananda Saraswati and the deliverance of all the sannyasis. And this is what happened after. So in the beginning of the chapter, we've got Krishnadas Kaviraj is telling us the background. The Maharashtrian Brahma thought whoever closely sees the characteristics of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately realizes his personality and accepts him as the Supreme Lord. I shall have to reside at Varanasi for the rest of my life. If I don't try to carry out this plan, I shall certainly continue to suffer mental depression. So we see the Maharashtrian Brahmana, prior to the pastimes, he was concerned that the sannyasis of Varanasi were disrespecting Lord Chaitanya. And they weren't accepting the philosophy of personalism. And so he wanted to do something about it. At this time, Chandrasekhar and Tapan Mishra both heard blasphemous criticism against Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and felt very unhappy. They came to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet to submit a request. They submitted their request, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing his devotees' unhappiness, decided to turn the minds of the Mayavadi sannyasis. And then Krishnadas Kaviraj tells us, I shall try to include in this chapter whatever was not described there. So we're continuing on the pastimes of Varanasi. And Varanasi is such a important city, it seems, in India, such a beautiful city as well. And at that time, there was such a hub of philosophical discussions, but it was all based around impersonalism. And from the beginning from the day on which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed his mercy to the Mayavad sannyasis, there was vivid discussions about this conversation amongst the inhabitants of Varanasi. So it sounds like after Lord Chaitanya had converted them, it sounds like the whole city was on fire. Everyone was discussing this massive transformation that had happened in the city. All these sannyasis have converted to personalism. Crowds of people came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from that day on, and scholars of various scriptures discussed different subject matters with the Lord. So it sounds like it was quite a historical event. was a shift in the not only the consciousness but the philosophy of this entire place. And so then we have the sannyasis now glorifying Lord Chaitanya and glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam. One of the disciples of Krsnananda Saraswati, who was as learned as his guru, began to speak in that assembly, offering all respects to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan himself. When he explains the Vedanta Sutra, he does so very nicely. Giving up the direct meaning of the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishad, Sri-Caitanya imagines some other interpretation. All the interpretations of Sri-Caitanya are imaginary. Such imaginary interpretations are verbally accepted by learned scholars, but they do not appeal to the heart. So this is like 180 degrees turn. Suddenly you have these sannyasis who were inimical to Lord Chaitanya's dancing and chanting, and so proud of their philosophy, and suddenly they've become so humbled. And not only humble, but they're appreciating Lord Chaitanya, and they're pointing out the flaws in Sankaracharya's philosophy. But it also sounds like they've discovered their hearts. Lord Chaitanya's taken them out of their heads and placed them in their hearts. I'm just taking a few verses as I go through. So if anyone's got any comments or reflections as we go through, or little ahas, then please put your hand, please jump in. Personalism versus Sankaracharya. In this age of Kali, one cannot attain liberation without taking to devotional service. In this age, even if one does not chant the name of Krishna perfectly, he still attains liberation very easily. I was quite inspired by that little verse there, that even if one does not chant perfectly, he still attains liberation very easily. So we understand that liberation is kind of like a byproduct of chanting Hare Krishna. What the impersonators are trying so hard to attain liberation, a devotee attains easily. Text 33 in the purport, Prabhupada says, impersonal appreciation of the absolute truth is one-sided and incomplete. One should also accept the other side, the personal side, Bhagavan. One should not be satisfied simply by understanding the Brahman feature of the personality of Godhead. One must also know the Lord's personal feature. That is complete understanding of the absolute truth. A supreme transcendental one, the transcendental form I am now seeing, is full of transcendental bliss. It is not contaminated by the external energy. It is full of effulgence. My Lord, there's no better understanding of you than this. So this chapter, I get the theme in this chapter that it's really establishing personalism. And particularly as we go into the Chatur Slokis later in the verse, it's really establishing that personal concept of the absolute truth. And it's amazing how Lord Chaitanya has used the Mayavadi sannyasis to emphasize that. It's almost like that contrast and that transformation has really emphasized, or given emphasis to, or highlighted the importance of personalism. Text 45, whatever meaning Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives is perfect. Any other interpretation is only a distortion. The words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are a shower of nectar. Whatever he concludes to be the ultimate truth is indeed the sum and bonum of all spiritual knowledge. So I'm getting that the sannyasis have completely embraced Lord Chaitanya as the personality of Godhead. They're 100%. It seems like their faith has been transformed, and they're completely submitting themselves to Lord Chaitanya. Whatever he concludes is indeed the sum and bonum of all spiritual knowledge. while the Lord was on his way to the Maharashtrian Brahma, on his way, he was heading towards the temple. The Maharashtrian Brahmana informed him about the incidents that took place. So he's informing him of the incidents that we've just been going through, of these sannyasis glorifying him. Hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled happily. Upon reaching the temple of Bindu Madhava, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing the beauty of Lord Bindu Madhava, became overwhelmed in ecstatic love. He then began to dance in the courtyard of the temple. In all directions, hundreds and thousands of people began to chant Hari Hari. Thus there arose a tumultuous and auspicious sound filling the entire universe. my mind feels so inspired by this image of all these thousands of hundreds and thousands of people all chanting Hare Krishna in a place that only just a few days ago or a few weeks ago was like a dry, philosophical, speculative place of knowledge and pride, and suddenly they were erupting and chanting the Lord's names in all humility. I can just imagine the tumultuous, ecstatic experience and the impact that Lord Chaitanya's had. By studying the six, this is verse 56, studying the six philosophical theories, one cannot reach the absolute truth. I believe this is still who's talking here? I've lost does anyone remember who's talking in this part of it? Is this Lord Chaitanya talking now, or is this still the sannyasi?
I think it's Krsnananda Saraswati himself.
Yeah, correct. That's my understanding. It's Krsnananda. Starting in text 47, Krsnananda Saraswati said,
Thank you for clarifying that. So we had one of Krsnananda Saraswati's disciples was talking, and now it's himself. He's actually talking. So here he talks about the six philosophical theories, and Prabhupada breaks that down for us. And I think Bharat Prabhu, you also break that down, didn't you, in your pearls as well? And it's quite interesting. I thought for me it was quite interesting to get the perspective of the whole thing, and even to see how these philosophies fit into the world today, that they're all there, they're all present. So the first one, Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the summary. Throughout the world, Prabhupada says, 99% of the philosophers following in the footsteps of Shankaracharya refuse to accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So first of all, it talks about the Mimamsaka philosophers who follow the principles of Jaimini and stress fruitive activity. And they say if there's a God, he must be under the laws of fruitive activity. According to these philosophers, there's no need to become a devotee. They give stress to following one's prescribed duties. I guess I liken that to the Karma Kandya section of the Vedas, which is all about fruitive activity for higher elevation. And then the second one, the atheistic Sankhya philosophers like Kapila analyze the material elements very scrutinizingly, and thereby they come to the conclusion that material nature is the cause of everything. That also sounds like the scientists. You see material nature as the cause of everything. And the next one too, the Nyaya philosophers, number 3, Gautama and Kanda have accepted a combination of atoms as the original cause of creation. Well, that sounds like the Big Bang Theory. It sounds like these scientists were studying the ancient philosophers of India and then using that to create their atheistic doctrines. The Mayavadi philosophers say that everything's an illusion. Number 4, headed by philosophers like Astavakra, they stress the impersonal Brahman effulgence as the cause of everything. And the 5th one, philosophers following the precepts of Patanjali imagine a form of the absolute truth within many forms. That is their process of self-realization. Does anybody have any insights they would like to share on that on those 5 philosophical, any insights or questions or
Krishna,
Once again, Bharata, I didn't see your hand up.
I didn't put my hand up, so I let Atmananda go first.
Bart, please go ahead.
I just wanted to mention Anandini was asking the question in the comments there in what I wrote about the atheists, like that it was interesting that the Mayavadis are not being named as atheists there, and in the lectures that Prabhupada shared about the chapter, he's hammering so much the Mayavadis, and he's not even bothering with Nyaya, and he's never mentioning Mimamsaka or so much, but the Mayavadis. And I'm thinking, no, maybe it is because the Mayavadis, they are seeing the Brahman effulgence, they are seeing Krishna, but what Prabhupada is sharing in the lecture, stressing again and again, they deny that he's a person. They deny that he has ears, and he is giving the analogy of a friend saying someone is not, my friend is not having ears, not having eyes. So basically, Krishna is blind. Krishna is
Deaf.
Yeah, deaf, and that's most offensive. And only from that I can understand this better. Yeah, it's worse than atheism.
Yeah, I get what you're saying about that. Prabhupada spends a lot of his. We often see Prabhupada really highlighting the issues with the Mayavadi philosophy, and your understanding of that is because the Mayavadis, whereas an atheist just denies God, so they're completely on the opposite spectrum. But the Mayavadis, it may seemingly be that they're spiritually inclined to God, but they take away his personal form, so that's far more offensive.
Hare Krishna, yeah, like it seems as a general principle, like when a particular school of understanding or philosophy, when it's kind of like closer to Gaudiya Siddhanta Bhakti, then Prabhupada, we could say, is more heavy and vehement, or even gets angry at the philosophy, at the deviant parts of those philosophies or pseudo philosophies, because there's more potential for harm. And so like, okay, so like the Mayavadis, they have some idea of there is the supreme Brahman. All right, so in one sense they're closer to realizing truth and absolute truth than the Nyayas or Mimamsaka, who's saying maybe there is, maybe there isn't, like that. But then, as others have shared, but then they're particularly offensive, but say, oh, of course there's a God, and he has no hands. So then, because so much of the world is misled by that in the name of spirituality, then Prabhupada is very heavy. Or I think it's similar, let's say, with the Sahajiyas. And Prabhupada sometimes interestingly equates Sahajiyas and Mayavad, although they can seem, oh, they're quite different. But sometimes Prabhupada says the Mayavadi Sahajiyas, like the Sahajiya Mayavadis. So the Sahajiyas, you can say, they not just get on that there's like a Allah Akbar, there's a great Brahman, Paramam. They get that God's personal. They not just get that God's personal. They get that Sri Krishna is the personality of God. They not just get that, they get Sri Radha Krishna. Wow. So you could say, and in a sense, it's true. They do have a closer, deeper, fuller understanding of Siddhanta. At the same time, their deviations because people are attracted to that in the name of bhakti, in the name of Radha Krishna service, then their deviations are especially dangerous. And so Prabhupada, just like with the Mayavadis, as much or more so with the Sahajiyas, Prabhupada's very, very heavy about how they're giving an apasampradaya, because otherwise people get so misled and are getting so misled. And then spirituality, it's Mayavad. Bhakti, it's Sahajiya. So I just want to give that principle. One more comment comes to mind in regards to Patanjali. It's a very, very interesting study. Like right in Bhagavad Gita, like 6th chapter, that's the Hatha Yoga chapter. Prabhupada makes comments on Patanjali and his system, and for the most part, they're pretty favorable. Kind of like, yeah, Patanjali gives the idea, and he even indicates there's a personality of Godhead. He doesn't give the complete Siddhanta like Vyasadeva in the Bhagavatam, but it's pretty favorable. But then if we do a totality, if we look at the totality of Prabhupada's teachings on Patanjali and his, not so much Patanjali, but Patanjali's system, then Prabhupada is more cautionary and warning about how it's a form of Mayavadi thinking that you become Vishnu and stuff like that. So just a few comments. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Govinda Prabhu. You pointed out twice, you said the word dangerous when you were sharing that. And just reflecting on why that is, because the general principle you're putting up is that the closer the philosophy is, the more dangerous it is that the misunderstandings can be there, and someone can be misled from the pure path of bhakti, which is what Prabhupada's trying to give us. And so it's a fine line to achieve. It's very easy to slip away from that pure path that Prabhupada's given us. And I was thinking in a very mundane sense, that same principle applies. Like if I'm good at Madanga playing and someone's good at harmonium playing, it doesn't really bother me. But if someone else is good at Madanga playing, well, then suddenly I'm feeling my enviousness is coming. It's a similar principle, although this is the spiritual aspect of that. This is far more important. Prabhupada's trying to protect us from that danger. Ramananda Prabhu, did you want to share something?
Yeah, I just noticed this now specifically. Throughout the world, 99% of the philosophers, I thought that might be quite generous. I mean, maybe at the time of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there was not such a predominance of Mayavadi, but I am really wondering if the 1% seems quite a lot. That today, I wouldn't even say that. I mean, I might use the expression 99% of people who do follow anything, even quasi-spiritual, might be 99, but I don't. 1% seems to me that's quite generous. I don't know of anyone except Prabhupada who has been preaching straight personalism, what to speak of Achinta Bheda Veda Tattva in recent history. That's stuck out for me.
Yeah, you're quite surprised that 99%, Prabhupada's only given 99%, not 99.9% of the philosophers that are stressing personalism. And as you're talking, and I'm also thinking that it's not that this is all outside of our movement. Actually, we see elements of these philosophies creeping in to our movement, and therefore we need a sense of discrimination to be able to see that. And maybe that's what's helpful. Maybe that's the practical application of this, is to understand these different philosophies and how they manifest in different ways. And I think some time ago in one of our discussions, Govinda Prabhu, you were sharing how I've lost my flow of thought. So if it comes back to me, I will get back to there. Okay.
I see that Yogeshwar Prabhu has his hand up.
Yogeshwar, okay, thank you. I didn't see that. Yogeshwar Prabhu, please share.
Thanks. I have just two quick notes. Like Prabhupada uses the term Mayavad, like in different like scope. Like one can understand it like everyone who is not a devotee of Krishna is Mayavada. That's like the broad scope. And here we have like a precise, like a specified scope of that term. So it also depends on the context. And the second point is the first philosophy, the karma mimamsa. That's the philosophy that Krishna teaches his father in Vrindavan, in the Govardhan hill pastime, because he does not want him to worship Indra. So he says, okay, you don't need to worship some god because you just do your work as good as possible, and you will get your fruit. So there is no need for God. So I was remembering that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Yogeshwar, for bringing that sweet pastime. Yes, and reminding us that Krishna used that philosophy to persuade his father not to worship Indra. And also, I get from what you're saying that there's almost a spectrum of Mayavadi. There's not just a clear definition of Mayavadi. There's a spectrum of different levels of Mayavadi. But of all five of these philosophies all reject the predominance of the personality of Godhead and strive to establish their own philosophical theories. So, and then the sixth one given by Bhaktivinoda Thakur is Srila Vyasadeva wrote the Vedanta Sutra, and taking the essence of all Vedic literature, established the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This Krishna consciousness movement is propagating the philosophical conclusion of Srila Vyasadeva and following other great acharyas like Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarka, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Now, I have to admit, I don't know who Nimbarka is. I don't have any insights on that. Does anybody else have any insights on who Nimbarka is?
Well,
It-
Malini.
Please go ahead, dear Govinda.
My understanding is Nimbarka Acharya is the prime Acharya in the line of the Kumara Sampradaya, just like Ramanujacharya is the prime Acharya in the line of the Sri Lakshmi Sampradaya. Vishnu Swami is the prime Acharya in the line of the Shiva Sampradaya, and Madhvacharya is the prime Acharya in the line of the Brahma Sampradaya. And then, of course, after Madhvacharya in the Brahma Sodaya came Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Nimbarka represents, I think it's the Kumara Sampradaya.
Thank you, dear Govinda, for clarifying that. So each of them are acharyas from the Sampradayas. That makes sense. Okay. I didn't write the verse down for this one, unfortunately. So I can't tell you what verse this one comes from. Maybe somebody will know. Sri-Caitanya-caritamrta has given his interpretation an imaginary meaning. It does not actually appeal to the mind of any sane man. He has done this to convince the atheists and bring them under his control. So in the purport, Prabhupada explains here the whole purpose of Sri-Caitanya-caritamrta, and his propaganda opposed the atheistic philosophy of Buddha. And so we see here that there was a purpose, there was a reason in Sankaracharya's coming. It wasn't just an accident, it wasn't just a mistake, it wasn't just a deviation. It was actually bringing back people to the Vedic, to the right conclusion. Sripad Sankaracharya wanted to establish the predominance of one's spiritual identity. Therefore, he wanted to convert the atheists through an imaginary interpretation of Vedic literatures. These are the secrets of the acharyas. Sometimes they conceal the real purpose of the Vedas and explain the Vedas in a different way. Sometimes they enunciate a different theory just to bring the atheists under their control. Thus it is said that Sankara's philosophy is for Pasanda's atheists. Very interesting. I've written Om Purnam at the bottom there because I was thinking as I read that this verse from the Sri Upanishad, Om Purnam Madaha Purnamidam, everything is perfect and complete. And whatever the Supreme Personality of Godhead does is also perfect and complete. And so when we see such great acharyas as Sankaracharya misleading the people philosophically, it's not that he was making a mistake, but he had a purpose and intention behind what he was doing. But then my mind is thinking, but this philosophy, as we just shared, is even more dangerous than the atheist philosophy. So then my mind's a little bit conflicted. How do I understand this? I'm going to pass on. Mother Melanie, you've got your hand up.
I put my hand up because when you read and when you read earlier, like the disciple of Prakashananda Saraswati, kind of, I felt, and when I read it too, I felt like, well, we need to be careful here because in the way we're speaking about Sankaracharya, it could be almost offensive. And he was his spiritual master, like it's a spiritual master that they accepted. And so it seems that Prakashananda Saraswati Thakur is kind of rectifying the understanding to kind of pacify everybody's mind and make sure nobody's make offenses towards Sankaracharya. And of course, we all notice like these are the secrets of the acharyas. So yeah, it sounds like there is such benevolence in the universe, and the canvassing is so much happening according to place, time, and circumstances. And within the sampradayas and outside of that, with the others tradition, like Muslim tradition or Christian tradition. And I felt very happy when that explanation came, because I wanted the Mayavad sannyasis that they have their heart transformed, but that they don't denigrate the great Sankaracharya, because he's a great devotee of the Lord. He writes so many beautiful devotional songs. So that will be offensive towards a pure devotee. So that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Mother Melanie. So when you read that verse, you felt some sense of relief that these sannyasis, they're not denigrating, I think you used that word, they're not denigrating the great Sankaracharya. Actually, they're understanding his proper place in the universal. What was the word you used for bringing the souls back? Canvassing.
Canvassing, yeah. That's Prabhupada's word.
Canvassing according to time, place, and circumstance, so that they're able to see the actual place of Sripad Sankaracharya and his importance in doing that, giving the souls a chance to come forward somehow in their spiritual life. Mission of Lord Chaitanya. Okay, jumping forward to text 167. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his residence with his personal associates. Thus he turned the whole city of Varanasi into another Navadvip. So this is what we were saying at the beginning, the significance of this pastime of transforming Varanasi into Navadvip. Prabhupada comments in the purport, discussions of Bhagavatam was very rare in Varanasi and Navadvip. Such a discussion was quite ordinary. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited Varanasi and turned Prakashananda Saraswati and his disciples into Vaishnavas, Varanasi became like Navadvip because so many devotees began discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. Among his own associates, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu laughingly said, "I came here to sell my emotional ecstatic love." I love that verse. All of you were feeling unhappy that no one was purchasing my goods and that I would have to carry them away. Therefore, by your will only, I have distributed them without charging. I think several people noted those verses in their reflections and pearls. Is that right? I think those verses were obviously touching the hearts of the devotees. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement especially aims at defeating the Mayavada conclusion about the absolute truth. So that was Prabhupada's purport in text 35. Prabhupada made that comment. In text 40, those who are envious of my form, who are cruel and mischievous and lowest among men, are perpetually cast into hellish existence and various demoniac species of life. So this is, I think, adding, how do we say, evidence to your conclusions there, Bharat Prabhu. And that's a quotation from the Bhagavad Gita. In the purport of verse 20, following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we are trying to convince everyone that devotional service of the Lord is enjoined in every scripture. If a person is religious, he must accept the supreme authority of the Lord, become his devotee, and try to love him. This is the real principle of religion. It does not matter whether one is Christian, Mohammedan, or whatever. He simply must accept the sublime position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and render service unto him. It is not a question of being Christian, Mohammedan, or Hindu. One should be purely religious and freed from all these material designations. In this way, one can learn the art of devotional service. What I'm getting from Prabhupada here is that whilst he so strongly propounds the philosophy of personalism, it doesn't matter whether one is coming at personalism as a Christian, as a Mohammedan. All it matters is that one is accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a person. And so Prabhupada is non-sectarian. He sees the value in these other religions that are also accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In text 135, being very dear to the devotees and sadhus, I'm attained through unflinching faith and devotional service. This Bhakti Yoga system, which gradually increases attachment for me, purifies even a human being born among dog eaters. That is to say, everyone can be elevated to the spiritual platform by the process of Bhakti Yoga. So I love these verses because it's inclusive, it's not exclusive. Everybody has the opportunity. And Lord Chaitanya has, in this particular pastime, shown how even the greatest offenders, if we go back to that previous verse here, those who are envious, who are cruel and mischievous, are cast into the Hades. Those are envious of my form. So if we think of the sannyasis of Varanasi, who were envious of his form, and Lord Chaitanya has even converted them. This particular verse in 193, I find really interesting. And Prabhupada says the same thing in the Bhagavad Gita in the introduction. And I'm not sure if he says it anywhere else. Maybe somebody will know. But he says here, we advocate that everyone should unite again under one culture, Krishna consciousness. People should accept one God, Krishna, one scripture, Bhagavad Gita, and one activity, devotional service to the Lord. Thus people may live happily upon this earth and combine to produce sufficient food. This creates a picture in my mind of how Prabhupada saw the world becoming into the golden age. In such a society, there will be no question of scarcity, famine, or cultural or religious degradation. So this is like the counter to the one world order, the new world order that the demons are trying to bring us into. This is actually what we're fighting against. And Prabhupada says the same thing in the Bhagavad Gita introduction. He says, in this present day, man is eager to have one scripture, one God, one religion, and one occupation. So let there be one common scripture for the whole world, Bhagavad Gita. And let there be one God for the whole world, Sri Krishna, and one mantra only. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And let there be one work only, the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Does anybody want to respond to that particular verse or concept that I was presenting to?
It reminds me of the preface, maybe, from Krishna book written by George Harrison, where he says the same thing. He probably, got it from Prabhupada, but It's one of my favorite things in a Krishna book.
Mhm.
When God and all that.
All you need is love.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. I hadn't made that connection.
Yeah, it's such a, we can see utopia in that. But that's, one person we can trust who is not utopic, that he knows that there is a process and there is, a teaching, there is a way of life that if people do follow, then the result is guaranteed.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mother Melanie. I have a question that comes up for me because we understand that Prabhupada's presenting a non-sectarian personalist philosophy, and yet he's also advocating here that this entire world should be transformed to have one scripture, one God, one philosophy. And then all the people will be happy and combine. He says, if we do this, it seems like there'll actually be real cohesion amongst the people. And then we'll combine to produce food. So it's almost like this image of people living back in interconnected villages, but everyone's... Something that connects for me is that Maslow's hierarchy of needs starts with physical needs and then goes up, and the highest need is actualization, spiritual connection. And so we understand that people are most influenced, most affected by, most driven by those highest needs, which is our need for self-actualization. And so if we can all connect with each other on that level, then we've got real unity. Whereas if we connect on those lower need levels, like, okay, we're all looking after our bodily needs with each other, but we differ philosophically, then we never have unity.
It does sound sectarian, though. Everybody's the same book, everybody's the same process, everybody's the same mantra. It does sound very sectarian and not so open-minded. Or, yeah, it sounds like, okay, well, why not everybody follow Muhammad instead of Prabhupada or Christ, and the Bible instead of the Bhagavad Gita and Prabhupada?
So you're saying, yes, it does sound sectarian. I wonder how can we reconcile this? This is quite a big philosophical point for me. I don't feel challenged by it personally. I feel very inspired by it. But if I was to go out and present this to the world and say, hey, we just need one scripture, we just need one God, I guess I would feel afraid that people would attack me for being sectarian or attack me for being...
Yeah.
Anybody else have any insights you'd like to share on this?
And where are we sectarian and where we are not? I believe it's not so much in words that we say, but because there is preacher who will come out and say, Jesus is the only way, and we will say Prabhupada is the only way, but it can be very sectarian and coming from a sectarian place to say Prabhupada the only way. And the same thing can be coming from a non-sectarian way. But yeah, that fear is there. Recently, I was speaking with someone who's coming to Krishna consciousness and is about to, dive into Krishna consciousness and very scared. And that person was sharing that person was hearing two messages. On one hand, the message was very attractive of encompassing everything, understanding everything, American Indian, every tradition, and being able to encompass everything in Krishna consciousness. But she also started practicing and being in contact with devotees. And she said, but sometimes I'm really scared that in fact it's really very close-minded and narrow-minded. And so she was presenting that, and that's true. That's true. I really appreciated your question, because that's where we are at. And I do believe that at the core, for us to ask those questions all the time, I don't think it's a question necessarily to answer to, but to live by, because Lord Chaitanya's mission, it's supposed to spread all over the world, every town and village. So what does that mean? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're asking the question. This is supposed to happen. What Prabhupada is saying is what is supposed to happen according to the scriptural predictions. But how is that going to happen? It sounds like you've experienced where people come to Krishna consciousness and find they experience it to be too sectarian for them. As you're speaking, I'm also thinking that what's happened here to these sannyasis in Varanasi can happen to the whole world if we present it in the right way, that people get the taste and people actually understand the philosophy that Prabhupada's given us. Because if a Christian was to sincerely come and study the Bhagavad Gita, he's going to be convinced. If anybody comes and sincerely studies Prabhupada's books and experiences it in the right way, then they're going to be convinced by this philosophy. There's going to be no question that it works. So I'm thinking that it can happen because it is so complete, and it is so close, and it is so transformational. But it has to be presented in the right way that people can actually experience that.
Hare Krishna. In the conversation, I'm seeing here in the purport to 193 and the introduction, the Prabhupada is he's utilizing the principle of to include and transcend. So I don't see him rejecting the Quran or rejecting chanting some mantra from the Old Testament, Shema Yisrael, or rejecting any of the other Vedic processes. But I think precisely what he's saying is like that to accept Sri Krishna, then that's the most complete realization of the absolute. Sri Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it doesn't reject the Brahman realization, doesn't reject the God of the Old and New Testament. It doesn't reject Muhammad's teachings. It doesn't reject the Karma Kanda or Jnana Kanda or demigod worship aspects of the Vedas. It includes there. So what Prabhupada's saying is that this mantra, this Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna is a personality of Godhead, that this, like on that platform, we get to understand how all other paths lead to that ultimate harmony and unity, and that in one sense, yeah, that this is, whereas those other paths which lead to some partial realization, maybe of a demigod or Brahman or super soul realization, they're Prabhupada sometimes talk about how sometimes in the name of religion, it's like a religion started at a particular time of history. There's a lot of sectarianism there. Some of it is just concocted. Some of it might be authorized, but Shankaracharya gives something that it's authorized in some way, but he's also deliberately misleading in some way because that's his service. So Prabhupada is saying that all that is connected and aligned and leads towards the absolute truth is included and transcended in and Krishna consciousness. Sri Krishna is the personality of Godhead. Bhagavad Gita and Bhakti Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga includes Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga, and it's the ultimate goal of demigod worship. So Prabhupada's not excluding, I see he's including and transcending.
Thank you for that insight, Prabhu. I like that conclusion, including and transcending. So it's not exclusive. What Prabhupada is presenting here, Prabhupada's one world order isn't exclusive of other philosophies and other approaches, but it's transcending that, and it's providing that the highest perspective and the highest goal and the highest philosophy that others can then see themselves in rather than feel excluded. And it seems like the reflection I get from that is that those people who are leading the way with this have to be able to present it in that way, that it's accepting. It's not holier than thou sort of approach, because if we come across in that way to others, we're holier than thou, we're better than you, then people don't want to be included. They want to turn away from such a thing. That's when it becomes sectarian.
One example of that in relation to one very common philosophy today, communism. Prabhupada used the term spiritual communism. So he took that Marxist philosophy and he in one sense he included it, but he also transcended it, making God the center instead of the state. And also, I don't remember the particular reference, but the way, I think you indicated this, Malini, that the way it's presented, because Lord Chaitanya, what was the term used? He's very politely, humbly, respectfully presented Krishna consciousness. And I think that's a large part of what Prabhupada wanted us to become, how Prabhupada wanted us to become, to be able to share the perfect philosophy without coming across as self-righteous or on the high horse, but the mood, the way of being, the mood of service in the way we present it. The personality, the way of being becomes as important as the what's being said in that sense.
Thank you, Abhinanda Prabhu, for that last point. I particularly appreciate that the way of being, of how we present things, is more important than what we're saying. And interesting, just reflecting back on Lord Chaitanya, how he converted the sannyasis. It wasn't so much what he said, it was just how he was being in humility, wasn't it? He was being so humble. Wasn't he sitting amongst the shoes or the foot bathing space? Krsnananda Saraswati went to lift him out and say, please don't sit in there. That's an amazing example. Okay, I'm going to move on. I was wanting to spend an hour sharing, and then the second hour I'll probably share.
Nandini have hand raised.
Okay, thank you. You got your hand up. Hi, Dini.
I think I saw a few hands up that didn't get to speak yet.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not keeping an eye on hands, so please jump in. Hladini Prabhu, would you like to say something?
Yes, I really like this conversation, and I'm thinking that this doesn't mean like one scripture, one mantra, one name of God. It doesn't mean that, like, for me, in this conversation I'm coming to the understanding it's like it's adding on to all the religions that exist. And then there's like Prabhupada, the meaning of Prabhupada, how I understand it's like the master to whose feet all other masters assemble. And so like from my own experience, it's Jesus Christ who led me. Like I was praying to Jesus Christ for 1 year very intensely, and that's when I came to Srila Prabhupada, and then I've heard that from others too. So yeah, like all these I don't know, religious leaders, yeah, they might all be collaborating together. We don't know about that. I mean, we can guess, I can guess about it, but we don't know. So that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you. Yeah, you're seeing how religious leaders potentially can and potentially could be actually collaborating together to bring the souls back to the right path. As you were saying that yesterday, I was listening to people talking about Srila Prabhupada, and one of them was Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And he shares how he came to Krishna consciousness. He had one guru, and his guru told him, he said, I've stopped teaching since Bhaktivedanta Swami came to America because he is the Jagat Guru. So you must go to him. And at that time, Bhakti Tirtha Swami was shocked. He said, what, those people with the bed sheets dancing on the streets? You want me to go to them? And of course, he did go along and he started learning the philosophy and became impressed. But then he went back to this guru to ask him some questions. And the guru chastised him and said, how dare you come back to me? You've now found the Jagat Guru, Srila Prabhupada, and you're coming back to me, you rascal. Don't ever come back to me again. So it seems whoever that guru was understood who Srila Prabhupada was, understood his significance, and sent his disciple off to Prabhupada. That's a beautiful story. I had a whole section on Bhagavatam to share, but I'm actually going to jump over it and go on to Srila Prabhupada's books. And then we'll have our sharing of a sentence from Prabhupada. And then if we have time at the end, we'll go back to the Bhagavatam. But I actually have to say, no, I have to leave at 10 to 8 because I have to get to work. So I'm going to have to leave 10 minutes early. Okay. Text 118. When one is transcendentally situated, he can perceive me. This perception is the basis of one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. Now let me further explain this subject matter. I'm going to go up to something that I highlighted. This is from the text 91 on the Bhagavatam. One can understand the purpose if he hears it from the authority of Vyasadeva himself. So one of the themes that comes up in this chapter is the importance of hearing through the Parampara system and through the authorities, that we can very easily misunderstand the meanings. And this is going back to what Durgavinda Prabhu you were saying earlier about the importance of understanding that, thank you, the philosophy in the right way. So we have to hear it from the authority. And then here we've got the word scrutinizingly. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised Krsnananda Saraswati, study Srimad Bhagavatam very scrutinizingly. So this word scrutinizingly comes up many times in Prabhupada's books. It's there in the very first sentence of the Bhagavad Gita. And we'll see it here again, here, scrutinizingly, it came up again here. So this is in the same chapter. Text 118. When one is transcendentally situated, he can perceive me. The perception is the basis of one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. Now let me further explain this subject matter. So in Prabhupada's purport, he says, real spiritual knowledge has to be received from revealed scriptures. After this knowledge is attained, one can begin to perceive his actual spiritual life. Any knowledge achieved by speculation is imperfect. One must receive knowledge from the Parampara system and from the Guru. Otherwise, one will be bewildered and will ultimately become an impersonalist. When one very scrutinizingly deliberates, he can realize the personal feature of the absolute truth. And then here, I think somebody shared this recently on Facebook, and I kind of jumped onto it because I liked it. So this is a quote from Srila Prabhupada. Do you read So if you don't read, then you will feel restless. Oh, let me go from Japan to India, from India to Japan. You are restless because you don't read. I am laboring so hard for you, but you don't take advantage. Don't take advantage of eating and sleeping. Take advantage of these books, and your life will be successful. My duty, I have given you so valuable things day and night, trying to convince you, each word to word. So then I see a connection between this scrutinizingly studying the books or the scriptures and then this word to word. And if you don't take advantage of it, then what can I do for you? And here we have scrutinizingly again. This is from the first sentence of the Bhagavad Gita. The first sentence of the Bhagavad Gita is Prabhupada's opening sentence, so it's a very important sentence. And he says, Bhagavad Gita is the widely read theistic science summarized in the Gita Mahatmya, the glorification of the Gita. There it says that one should read Bhagavad Gita very scrutinizingly, with the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna, and try to understand it without personally motivated interpretations. And then connected to that, I think, is this verse here, verse 57, which the truth is hidden in his heart. So I connected this with Srila Prabhupada. So the verse 57, dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, all the Shastras confirm one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajanas advocate. The connection I was making here is Prabhupada's given us his purports, and so the solid truth is hidden. Prabhupada's put his heart into his purports. And so the solid truth, which is hidden in the heart of Srila Prabhupada, is given to us in his purports. But the only way for us to access that, to unlock that, is to scrutinizingly study those purports and read them carefully with scrutinizing the word to word and really trying to understand what is Prabhupada trying to tell us. And then we can unlock those secrets. This is a response. Bharat Prabhu, you put this question up on your sharing. So this was a response to the question that, oh, Yogeshwara Prabhu. You wrote in your Pearls, it's interesting that Prabhupada writes, this Bhagavad Gita is a little different from Vedic scriptures. Does this mean the Vedic scriptures cannot bring out the absolute truth in the heart, yet Bhagavad Gita can, because?
Yeah, I just want to know that this was question from Anandine, and I replied then.
Thank you. So what was that last thing you said, Yogeshwar? I missed your last sentence.
That I shared my reply to this question in my email response later.
Thank you. And then I found this in the Bhagavad Gita introduction, which seems to give some light on that. Prabhupada says, because Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one need not read any other Vedic literature. One need only attentively and regularly hear and read Bhagavad Gita. In the present age, people are so absorbed in mundane activities that it is not possible for them to read all the Vedic literatures. But this is not necessary. This one book, Bhagavad Gita, will suffice because it is the essence of all Vedic literatures, and especially because it's spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Prabhupada's quoting their Gita Mahatmya 4. Very interesting, because, of course, this chapter is also highlighting the importance of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada's saying here that you don't need anything else other than the Bhagavad Gita. And yet this whole chapter is glorifying the Bhagavatam as also being the essence of the Vedic scriptures. And so, yeah, I was trying to understand, maybe Bhagavad Gita can be enough. It seems from what Prabhupada's saying here, we don't need anything else. And yet he's given us so much more. does anybody have any insights on anything that we've just shared around Prabhupada's books? And
at the end of Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada said it's the only book we need. And we should just read Krishna book again and again and again and again.
okay.
And, in a sense, in Krishna book, he gives both the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam in one. So synthesize all the knowledge because of the expertise of Srila Prabhupada. I will say all we need is to read Srila Prabhupada's books. Because, there is a Bhagavad Gita, but there is a purport of the Bhagavad Gita. There is Srimad Bhagavatam, and there is a purport of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah, so you're making the point, all we actually need is to read Prabhupada's books. And I get from you what Prabhupada's saying is that if you just read the Krishna book, it's enough. You'll get Krishna consciousness. If you just study that one and just read it again and again. If you just read the Bhagavad Gita, it's enough. But I've given you so much more. I've given you everything.
At one point, Prabhupada says, at maybe more than one point, Prabhupada says, if you just chant, that's enough. And then he said, and we have our books. If you study, then you'll have ammunition for defending yourself and defeating the attacks or the minimizations or the arguments against Achinjaveda Tattva. So maybe there's something behind here, like the secret of the Acharya. He's saying one thing which seems contradictory to another of his statements, and yet there's no contradiction there. Just like there's no contradiction between Shankaracharya's purpose. He was actually Lord Shiva, come to bring people away from nihilism, Buddhism. So, open secret.
What I'm getting from this is the importance of studying Prabhupada's books as our process of surrender. That unless we really understand this philosophy, unless we really understand Prabhupada's books, then we're gonna be influenced by his other philosophies to some extent. But if we're able to really understand what Prabhupada's giving us and unlock those secrets that are contained within, that's what I got from this chapter on the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it talks about the Chatur Sloki. It says the Chatur Sloki is coming from the sound Omkara. So the sound Omkara, contained within that sound vibration, there's all these secrets, there's all this knowledge. And that is then expressed in the Gayatri mantra, which was then transferred to Lord Brahma in the, what do they call it? The Vedanta Sutra, so it's called the Brahma Sutra. And that was then transferred from Srila Vyasadeva into the form of the Bhagavatam, which is then further condensed into those 4 slokas, the Chatur Sloki. So this, it's almost like we have to be like spiritual archaeologists. An archaeologist, they go into the ground and they try and find these treasures. So we have to be like spiritual archaeologists going in to Prabhupada's book, scrutinizingly trying to unlock the secrets that are contained within there, to find the treasure that he's given us. It's all there in his books, but it's so easy for me to read over a purport, oh yeah, I got that, and then move on to the next one. But if I actually stop and spend time, especially with another devotee, and we really discuss it and we really churn it over, then suddenly all these things start coming out, these realizations come out, and these connections come out. There's so much more there.
Hare Krishna, this is Kumar.
Hare Krishna.
Hey, so what's coming up for me in that discussion, in this discussion, is just the famous slogan by Sriman Nike, just do it. no, because on one, there's a paradox. Yes, on one hand, yes, we can be archaeologists, and Prabhupada's advocating for that. But when he's saying you can just chant, but you can just read the Bhagavad Gita, my sense is that if you read just the Bhagavad Gita and then you just do it, then it's enough and you're going to get there. But as you're saying, the point is that often we are reading, but we're not finding that spark of inspiration, or we're not translating our academic reading of words into action. And so, you know, it's something about that, I guess. You know, if we're going to have that clear intention to actually act upon it, then probably any small portion of Srila Prabhupada's teachings, almost many, if not all purports, we could take on their own and just do it. But I mean, I guess speaking for myself, it might be that we read the Bhagavad Gita and we still haven't stirred up that fire of action. We're not just doing it. So then, hey, well, we can move on to the Srimad Bhagavatam, and perhaps as we read that, we just, you know, that fire can be lit. So, you know, don't just stop unless you really are just doing it. I hope that makes sense.
I'm going to try and understand you, Kumar, and please correct me if I don't get it right. I think what you're saying is that we can just go through the motions of just doing it. I'm reading Srimad Bhagavatam, or I'm reading Bhagavad Gita, and I'm moving through the purports, but I'm not actually transforming that into action in my life. Whereas I could slow that down and just concentrate on some aspects of that and actually apply that in my life in a more effective way. Did I understand you correctly?
I think so. I think, yeah, we can read a book about how to train for a marathon, or we can just put on our trainers and get out the door and start doing it. So I suppose it's that action element of just do it. And if we are just doing it, then the Bhagavad Gita alone would be sufficient, and we could go for it.
Okay, yeah, I think what you're saying is that if we're actually putting it into action, then the Bhagavad Gita is enough. Whereas if we just read the Bhagavad Gita but we don't put it into action, then maybe we need more to convince us in order to start taking that action.
Yeah.
I'm appreciating the conversation. Hare Krishna. So Bhagavad Gita contains everything. There's in terms of foundational principles, there's nothing new in Bhagavatam or Chaitanya-caritamrta. Chaitanya-caritamrta and Bhagavatam, they expand on Bhagavad Gita. So sometimes Prabhupada describes all the Vedas. It's basically Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana. That was a theme in the teachings to Sanatana Goswami. Sambandha, our essential relationship with God, Krishna, as servants, Abhideya, the actions in those relationships, the different types of relationships, and Prayojana, the fruit, the ultimate aim, the love of God. So that's all there in Bhagavad Gita. It's all there in Bhagavad Gita. There's nothing missing. Bhagavad Gita is complete. Okay, then in spiritual life, there's complete, more complete, more complete. So Bhagavatam expands in everything in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita describes about the principles of creation. Bhagavatam expands on it hundreds of times. Bhagavad Gita describes karma. It's complete. And Bhagavatam, Chaitanya-caritamrta expand on that, on those principles. Bhagavad Gita describes about pure devotional service. Bhagavatam, Chaitanya-caritamrta expand. So Bhagavad Gita contains all of the foundation. It's complete. There's nothing missing. And for one who's eager to continue their spiritual immersion and spiritual growth, philosophical understanding, deepening of the nuances and subtleties. Okay, then there's Bhagavatam, Chaitanya-caritamrta. So Bhagavad Gita is complete, nothing more is necessary. And in that verse 278, so Prabhupada's giving the principle of Bhagavad Gita being complete. And in verse 278 of this chapter 25, Prabhupada saying, practically speaking, for those who aspire to understand and follow Bhagavad Gita in the line of Prabhupada, practically speaking, Prabhupada's saying it's important to read all of Prabhupada's books again and again. So I see no contradiction in any of that.
Melanie.
Thank you, dear Govinda Prabhu. I wanted to share something similar. And it seems to me, and maybe I'm not correct there, but it seems to me that the progression of those three major literatures that Srila Prabhupada gave us is that they all contain three aspects, the Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. But like Bhagavad Gita is really finding who we are. It's so much about meeting us where we are at and finding out who we are. And of course, like there is, Abhideya and Prayojana. And it seems that the Bhagavatam, because it's so much about devotional service, relationship between, it's no more Krishna speaking to teach us who we are, is Krishna interacting with his devotees in his different form and incarnation. And it's so much about the link, like Abhideya, like the relationship. And then Chaitanya-caritamrta, of course, the first two are there very, very much. We learn more about who we are. We learn more about the relationship, and it's even more flavorful. And so much is the Prayojana, like emphasized there. So it seems that each of them contain all three, but with different emphasizes for each of them, like that.
Thank you. Such nice insights to be shared, that whilst each of them is complete, that each of them gives different emphasis, different insights. And so by reading all of Prabhupada's books, we get the complete picture.
And then Krsnananda, your point about your emphasis on Prabhupada's emphasis, that we not only read all his books, but we read them scrutinizingly, which takes to another level, that it's not contradictory. It's expanding our own self-realization, our own doing it. Kumar helping us to, I can see this in my life, that the more I read and hear and discuss in this kind of forum, that my own understanding and application are encouraged, called forth.
Thank you. And one of my realizations on that is that if we don't study Prabhupada's books carefully, we can come out with many misunderstandings or misapplications of that philosophy. And of course, we've seen that. We see that everywhere. That's a reality. Is that we're not, as a movement, as an institution, as an international organization, we're not necessarily applying Prabhupada's teachings as they're meant to be. So it's calling upon us, I think, to carefully make sure we understand correctly. Problem.
Yeah, what's relevant for me now is we read this morning the first canto, second chapter, about the three different types of devotees, and Prabhupada sharing there that the Madhya-madikari knows what is it for things like knows Krishna and knows the knows the innocent people that are not knowing, and the envious, and what was it? The Bhagavat. I'm thinking of the envious people here, because my impression was when I was reading the chapter, it's great for us to preach to the Mayavadis better than to the atheists. I was thinking, okay, the others are more atheist, but the Mayavadis, they already have a glimpse, and maybe some of them they are willing to accept Krishna as a person. But then also, yeah, I'm confused there. From what we are speaking now, I'm thinking, no, they are envious. We shouldn't. And Prabhupada is saying at several points that we should not stay on the level of Kanishta Adhikari. And yeah, I see how I cannot distinguish properly, and how I lack the knowledge to even, I say Prabhupada says, but I don't know exactly where. And I don't have the philosophy like so straight that I can convince Mayavadis of all sorts. And I think Prabhupada wants that that I endeavor to read those books more scrutinizingly. So yeah.
Thank you, Barbara. I get you're coming up with a conclusion that it's important for you to read the books more scrutinizingly. It's almost like a calling.
For me, it's also just logic. Prabhupada saying, don't stay on the level of Kanishta. I mean, we are closer connected with Krishna by knowing those secrets, and we have a higher duty. If Prabhupada is getting heavy with the Mayavadis because they are not in integrity, like Kumar pointing out, that basic understanding of I know this, then I need to act upon it. And yeah, I see there's so much more that I can do to be in more spiritual integrity to Srila Prabhupada. And it also takes, yeah, it takes a lot, and at the same time I cannot do it all, so I need to put some focus, or need to give it some time also to grow. But the intention needs to be there.
Thank you. I'm appreciating your introspection and reflection on that, but also being practical and what's real for you. Okay, we have half an hour left. I only have 20 minutes left. I have to leave at 10 too. But I thought I'd call upon any of you if you'd like to share a sentence that you came across in Prabhupada's purport. So this is our scrutinizingly analyzing a sentence from Prabhupada and getting our understanding. What is Prabhupada saying in that sentence? And what's my response to that sentence? So does anybody want to go ahead and share? Do they have a sentence that you wanted to share?
Would you like to step out of screen sharing?
Yep, I'll step out of screen sharing for this one. That's better. That's nicer. I can see everybody's face now.
Hare Krishna. I've been enjoying everyone's sharing, and I was going to share a different purport, but now after this sharing, I feel like I want to go to something that just struck me, and it's in verse 55, and it says, the ultimate goal of studying all Vedic literature is the acceptance of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when I came to Krishna consciousness, I was very much attracted to Krishna, and I came from a Catholic background, and so I really liked having Krishna as a person that I could engage with and learn about his personalities. And it was just something that really brought me closer to God, is because Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so I was just really appreciating that purport, and knowing that the Vedic literatures give us all these beautiful pastimes so that we can engage with the Lord in a very personal way. So I just, in fact, I forget about all the other personalities. like Melanie had to remind me the other day that Gopal's birthday is also is coming. I was like, it's just Krishna, but I just always think it's Krishna. So I anyway, I find it very enjoyable to engage in reading about Krishna. So yeah, so that's what struck me, and I really that's what brought me to Krishna consciousness, is to know about Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Anasuya, for sharing. And I'm sorry, I have 3 children at home, and it gets intense in the morning, so I had to turn my camera off and go and be with them for a few seconds. Does anybody want to take the role of just reflecting what Anasuya Prabhu just said? Would anyone take the role and offer some reflection on her sharing? Amananda Prabhu.
Yes, Anasuya, that you were saying that you were very attracted when you first contacted Krishna consciousness to the personality, because your background, I don't remember the word you said, was personal, and it gave you so much joy, and it was attracted, and it brought you into Krishna consciousness because you relished hearing about the person, and it was so easy with Prabhupada's books and the association of like-minded devotees, my words, to do that, and that brought you closer and closer, so much so that you forget everything else or anyone else who may be Krishna directly or not. But that verse brought that up for you, that was the conclusion, to know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Thank you, Atmananda.
I don't know if I got everything, but
that's good. That's really, I know it's I resonate with everything you said, and I just I wanted to share that it was my Catholic background that I did not know who God really was, and so coming to learn about Krishna really engaged me. Like I was just fascinated, and that's where my heart really opened to God, to Krishna.
wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. So it's an open platform if anyone would like to jump in and share.
Hare Krishna. Well, I got your request or instructions, and the purport that I chose is the one we probably focused on the most, and that's one I had chosen before we started, from text 278, where Prabhupada writes, all the devotees connected with this Krishna consciousness movement must read all the books that have been translated, Chaitanya-caritamrta, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain an eternal, blissful life of transcendental pleasure. As far as the meaning for me, it means that what we're doing is good here in this Chaitanya-caritamrta study group. So, yeah, that we're on a good track in regards to pleasing and following Srila Prabhupada with this study group. And I see, like, there's nothing dogmatic here. Prabhupada's talking scientifically. Like, it's not just, in order to check off your daily sadhana, you need to read my books. It's not about like checking off. I get that he's saying like, okay, that if we want to progress towards that transcendental, self-satisfied bliss, that's the soul's proper spiritual birthright in connection with serving Krishna. If we want to experience that, then just like with chanting Hare Krishna mantra with a vow, then regularly, actually daily reading Prabhupada's books, he's saying it's vital if we want to experience that. And on the other hand, you might say the negative is like, and if we don't, and we can do our own experiments, if we don't, all right, then with that time that is there, because we're not reading Prabhupada's books, we'll eat more, sleep more, and generally become dull in our consciousness. So it's just Prabhupada saying, it's a vital part of sadhana if you want to experience the fruits, if you want to actually experience the fruits of Krishna consciousness.
Thank you, Dear Govinda Prabhu. I'm going to call upon everybody else. If somebody would like to take the role of just offering some reflective listening to what Dear Govinda's Prabhu has just shared, and then that person can then continue with their own sharing. So put that there as an opportunity for someone to take on.
Okay, I will do the reflection.
Nageshwar, thank you.
My impression, Dear Govinda Prabhu, is that you feel good about following Srila Prabhupada's program. Okay, yeah, yes, and that you are experiencing Srila Prabhupada's words in your life.
Yeah, that captures it in a nutshell. Yes, I feel received and understood. Thank you, Yogeshwar Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. My sentence that I chose is like the last sentence from the purport to text 193. And Prabhupada there, he says, recently we had talks with Christian leaders in Australia, including the Bishop of Australia, and everyone there was pleased with our philosophy of oneness in religious consciousness. So I was searching for the interview with the bishop, and I think it's the interview from June 29, 1974 that he had. And like, I want to share something small. I will not read the whole thing, but it starts like the bishop asked Prabhupada, like, are you feeling cold here, Your Grace? And Prabhupada replies, this heating is there. And then he laughs. So it's like very warm exchange from what I'm feeling, like the bishop really cares about Prabhupada's well-being. And then the bishop, he forgets his glasses because he want to read something from Prabhupada's books. So Prabhupada gives him his glasses, and those glasses fit him. So they also laugh together. And then the bishop, like, it's a longer interview, but towards the end, the bishop, yeah, he asks whether like one comes to God through God's guidance, like if there is like an individual guidance to the soul that the God gives, so the soul can turn towards God. And Prabhupada is replying that like there is like the individual instruction is not a primary one, that there is a general instruction, and that is to fully surrender to God. And then Prabhupada later clarifies that that can also be like personal instruction, but that's not like the primary thing. So I'm getting that was like a very very warm interview, and like the Bishop Kelly said quite a few times yes to what Prabhupada was saying. So that's my kind of parallel.
Thank you, Yogeshwar, for sharing and for understanding through Govinda as well. Would somebody else like to go next and take on the same role? Yogeshwar, could you choose somebody to go next?
No.
Okay, I will go next.
Thank you.
Yogeshwar, I get you as enlivened and moved by this interaction between Srila Prabhupada and the bishop, like especially the personal, very personal, like down-to-earth interaction, and the bishop's openness and agreement to what Srila Prabhupada is saying. So the sentence that spoke to me is the last sentence in the purport to text 170. And Srila Prabhupada writes, "We therefore pray for all the blessings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu upon all the devotees in the Western world who are spreading this movement." So I feel very moved in my heart by this. For me, it's like a motivation to endeavor to spread this knowledge, because then I get the blessing from Sri Chaitanya, because he will give it, because Srila Prabhupada is asking him to give it. And I want to receive Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's blessing.
Thank you for that inspirational sharing. I'm just going to wait and allow somebody else to take that role.
Nandini, I experienced you as like touch. And there is a lot of hope there, because Krishna listened to the petition of his pure devotee. And then if the pure devotee petition for his fallen soul followers, then it's a guaranteed of success. And that's nice. There's hope in that. Yes. I had originally looked at verse 193 purport, and then you shared something at Mananda from it, and then Yogeshwar shared from it, and then I feel like, okay. But in my notes, I have another purport that I really liked, so I will just read that part. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally traveled to, the verse number is 264. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally traveled to different regions of India to spread the bhakti cult throughout the country. He also personally relished transcendental activities. So, by his personal behavior, he has given an example of for devotees to follow. So I had a comment in my notes and pearls that if it's good enough for the personality of Godhead, it's good enough for us, because he's the supreme enjoyer, and really we don't know how to enjoy. We think we know. We think we know better than the pure devotee or Krishna, but he's the supreme personality of Godhead, the supreme enjoyer. And so if the supreme enjoyer says that's where the juice is, then we can go for it.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying and appreciating people sharing on just one sentence from Prabhupada. It's very inspiring. I have 5 minutes and I have to jump out, so I'll apologize when I have to jump out, but I'll pass it on to somebody else who wants to go next.
I'll go next. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Mother Malini. I guess I'm just getting from you a sense of joy and relish as you let go. If you can kind of let go a bit and surrender and know that Krishna's in control and he's the enjoyer and not you, then I feel your enjoyment is there. The text that I looked at, well, when you gave the instructions, I kind of flicked through, and the one I chanced on is text 271 and the purport. So the essence of spiritual knowledge is found in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which are identical with the pastimes of Lord Krishna. This is the essence of knowledge. If knowledge does not include the understanding of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna, it is simply superfluous. Yeah, I mean, there's lots in there, but there's something I feel kind of warmed. My connection to Sri Chaitanya is just amplified hearing Srila Prabhupada talk so directly about him being identical to Krishna. I'm also touched by the last sentence there. Any knowledge that does not include an understanding of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna is superfluous. So I listen to a lot of knowledge from books and podcasts, and 99.9% of it is not really about Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. And so I'm kind of just resonating, or just feeling that effect a little bit, and I'm kind of getting it. And it doesn't mean I'll necessarily stop ingesting this other knowledge, but perhaps if I see Lord Chaitanya and Krishna in it and the connection to them, that's something that also maybe I can cut down on some of it and replace it with something a bit more explicitly about Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. I'm willing to take that suggestion as well.
Krishna Kumar Prabhu, yeah, I'm touched by your sweet, trusting, and get that, hopefulness, sense of happiness. Hare Krishna. Okay, the sentence that I took is the first sentence that I picked there. Everyone should have a piece of land given by the government, and everyone should possess a few cows. I forgot to put it on the screen in a way that I see from which verse it is. I have it in my comments. What is most meaningful in there for me is Prabhupada saying everyone should have a piece of land and given by the government, everyone should possess a few cows. And I can imagine for him it's painful that it's not like that. Maybe it's only because I feel like that, because it's not there for my children or for myself or the devotees living like that. But yeah, I understand from what he's sharing off on many occasions that he's saying we must introduce this kind of civilization, and he's speaking about him mourning about having not done that and wanting to see that we take up this simple life, this simple lifestyle, and yeah, for me it's hard. I can connect with several aspects of it, but yeah, uneducated village girls, like those the primitive lifestyle in India, training oxen, that is not something that I personally feel super inspired about. So I think there's a lot to learn and to take up, to give a better model of how we can live. And yeah, I connect that as something that I want to do more and more in my life, and I hope that that makes Prabhupada happy.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your sharing. I'm feeling super inspired just hearing from all of you. And I'm going to have to dive out because I've got a very tight timeline now to get myself to work this morning. Thank you very much, everybody, for your sharing and for your inspirations and for making this time very wonderful. I'm going to ask if somebody would just take on the role of facilitating and finishing off the session. Would somebody take on that role?
Thank you, Krsnananda Prabhu, for being here with us. And I really enjoy like the energy you put to take us on overview of the most important point of chapter 25. And it was really a pleasant ride, a pleasant ride. Yeah. I can take the lead if you want me. I can do that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
Yep. I'm feeling super inspired by all of your Sangha, and all glories to Prabhupada. See you next time.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Do you have a pearl before you leave?
My pearl is going deeper, scrutinizingly.
Thank you, Krsnananda Prabhu. Have a beautiful day. I suggest that we go to Pearl, and then we can go to I don't know if we have a volunteer to. Well, we can go to the discussion. We start Madhya-lila, but I think it's assumed.
Did everyone share their sentence from Srila Prabhupada? I think did anyone not share? So Atmananda, would you like to reflect?
Oh, so you're taking over, dear Govindas. Good.
Would you like to reflect what Bharat shared and then share yours?
Yes, thank you. Bharat, I'm getting your sadness, and maybe you're getting how much you're getting Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's sadness that the government isn't providing a plot of land and cow or for everyone, and you're feeling maybe challenged in applying that yourself because, for example, training bullocks is not something that really attracts you, but you're feeling the urgency of us bringing people to the awareness of the necessity of varnashram in simple living, and to save us from the impending disasters. And I did share.
As you reflect, I get, yeah, my pain is I cannot inspire others if I'm not embracing the full thing in some authentic way for myself. Thank you.
Thank you. So my sentence is in the middle of verse 57, which I think others have noted, and the solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated self-realized person. So just now I'm picking up this hidden, that there's secrets there to be mined, and it's all there in that heart, the heart of the pure devotee, and the solid, unshakable spiritual reality, fathomless, and it's there for us for me to mine, and then Prabhupada is calling me to become very serious and urgent, have a sense of urgency about it.
Which verse was that?
That's 57.
It's a verse, not the purport.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry. Yes, it's the verse.
okay.
It's in the middle of the verse. The verse
Yeah.
starts with, dry arguments are inconclusive.
That one, yeah. Okay, so I'm understanding, Atmananda, this is moving for you. The actual essence, the truth of Shastric principles, it's in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person like Srila Prabhupada. And then as we follow his guidance, read his books, try to serve his mission, then in a very personal way, he reveals very, very personal process within the person's heart. Thank you, Atmananda Prabhu. I suggest we close with a round of pearls. After that, if we have time, someone can volunteer to facilitate the first chapter of Madhya-lila, of Madhya-lila. And if there's no volunteers within 30 seconds after we finish pearls, then we'll do that by correspondence. One or two words or a short phrase who'd like to start with pearls.
Including and transcending.
Thank you, Bharat.
Oneness in religious consciousness.
Thank you, Malini.
Lord Chaitanya is giving the best way to enjoy.
Thank you, Yogeshwar.
My pearl is just do it.
Thank you, Anasuya.
My pearl is thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for allowing me to step onto Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj's train and where it's taken me.
Thank you, Kumar. Thanks for your pearl.
My pearl is similar. It's appreciation that I get to hear from Srila Prabhupada about, through Srila Prabhupada about Lord Chaitanya and love of God.
Thank you, Anandini. Hare Krishna.
My pearl is, I want to become an ardent spiritual archaeologist to uncover the gleaming, brilliant, secret, hidden jewels of Srila Prabhupada's words.
Thank you, Atmananda. My pearl is Srila Prabhupada's edition of the New World Order. Okay, and would anyone like to volunteer to lead the first chapter of Madhya-lila? Going once, twice. All right, so let's handle that by correspondence. Thank you all for your presence and association. Sri-Caitanya-caritamrta ki.
Jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
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 Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.